Greetings, Fright fans, and welcome to The Horror Show. I'm Jaime and Fuego here with another solo review here for a film that I got the chance to check out actually in a theater earlier this year. That's right. This is for the very strange psychedelic new film from the director of We Are the Void, and it is called simply Climax. Yes. And so this is a ensemble dance troupe led by Sofia Boutella, who honestly was the best part of that Tom Cruise Mummy movie. She was also terrific in the third Star Trek film, Star Trek Beyond, and although she was in both of those roles under lots of like makeup and stuff like that, and honestly nearly unrecognizable as the very beautiful woman that she actually is. But you know, that sort of versatility is something that I really respect the heck out of from her. And so this is a director that has been seen as very controversial just for the sheer fact that he's borderline an experimental filmmaker, and in a lot of ways that trend continues with this. I saw some of We Are the Void on psychedelic drugs at one particular point, the little roomy boomies, and it ripped my mind in half, but I couldn't necessarily say that I found the narrative particularly engaging. It was really more so than anything else a visual feast of sorts, and just really strange and not particularly cohesive, but it kind of made sense for what what the director was going for. This has a little bit more of a structure, so I'll at least give it that. And so, overall impressions, this movie's weird, and I didn't necessarily hate it, like a lot of people will probably despise. I would not recommend this to any of the rest of the horror show crew, because I know that just some of the extended dance numbers would be a lot for people, because the film has a ton of extended dance numbers, and yet very impressive dancing and stuff like that, but really it takes a back the narrative takes a backseat to just these very impressively choreographed scenes, some of which, especially when I tell you guys the whole setup here, will be a little bit more interesting to take into context, and you'll really kind of understand where they could go with this wackiness. So overall impressions, it's definitely art house kind of horror, but not full-on horror. It really doesn't even delve into a horror film until the back half, when the story comes full circle. So let me tell you a story, okay? So essentially, Sofia Boutella has this dance troupe that she has put together, and they're in, I'm trying to remember if they're in Germany or if they're in France, because it's been a moment since I've seen this film, but you know, they're in Europe, and she has assembled a crew. I think there's one or two Americans, there's a lot of French dancers, there's some German dancers, and we have a little bit of everything, you know, gay, straight, everything in between, and you know, a nice ethnic mixture too. We've got black dancers, white dancers, and all of that stuff, all of those factors from race to sexuality all play a part in the dynamic of all of these people, because a lot of them are screwing each other and or want to, you know, there's one French dude in particular who's like, you know, I'm into girls and that's my thing, you know, I don't really do drugs, because the film essentially starts out with the lead director of sorts, I guess, of the entire project, asking all of these questions about, have you done drugs before? Have you, you know, like, what would you do for fame? And it's like these weird, almost like confessional type interviews that are going down. And so that's what the film initially starts out with. It's and yet kind of gives that hinting peek about, okay, where things are going to go. So after we get introductions to all of these different characters, you know, via these interviews, then it basically just goes right into a dance number that it's like over 10 minutes, you know, and it's all of them in this small little rehearsal theater, you know, this entire troupe of like practically 24 dancers, and it's not like, it's like performance dance kind of stuff, you know, and it's very impressively choreographed. I can only imagine how much rehearsal went in from all of these actors to actually do it, and you know, it's not quite breakdancing, but it's like the sort of dancing that you would see, you know, on stage with a pop star or something like that. You know, that's really the sort of vibe that they're going for. And honestly, it's some interesting, like, kind of tripped out dance music-y type stuff that they're actually playing as the track when this huge, very well choreographed scene is put together. It's shot very well, and it's very impressive talent-wise, you know, from everybody involved. But this is where I could see a scene like this really being lost on a lot of people, and they're just sitting there like twiddling their thumbs. They're like, okay, what's going to happen? Are we going to get to some dialogue at some particular point? How much longer is this going to go on for? After this finally ends, though, that's where we actually get a little bit of story, and everybody, it's like this after party and they're all drinking punch and eating and fraternizing with each other, and the camera just basically moves from like little conversation to little conversation, and here's these two on this side of the room, and here's a couple other people over here, and just all of their strange little, as they're getting a little bit more sauced, from drinking and from just partying and everything. That's where you start to get a little bit of the dynamic and just all the relational interactions amongst everybody. And it starts to become apparent as time goes on that something has been put in the punch, and something much beyond booze. And it puts some framing context into, the very beginning, and all those inquiries about, have you done drugs before? What drugs have you done? And so on and so forth. And so, yeah, there's only a couple people who haven't drank the punch. One in particular is a dancer who you find out is pregnant, and so that's why she's not drinking, and the whole time everybody is trying to get her to start to drink and stuff, but she's refusing to, and they're all trying to figure out why, and it's because she doesn't want anybody to know she's pregnant, because she knows she'll probably lose this dancing gig, if it comes out, and she wants to hold on to it for experience sake as long as she can. And so, yeah, that's about as far as I can tell you without spoiling things. Let's just say that as people start to trip out, tempers flare, and especially as they start to realize they're tripping out and become cognizant of it, the blame game starts. And it almost turns into kind of a bunker movie to that degree, in the fact that, like, everybody is blaming so-and-so, let's say, you're the one who did this to us, why didn't you tell us, and so on. And as the accusations rise and the mob mentality starts to step in, there's people like they take a dancer they think was responsible, and they go and they throw him out into the cold and like lock all the doors for a person to freeze to death. And the carnage just escalates from there. And that's where it actually turns into the horror movie, is in like the back third of this film, as those tempers just get worse and worse, and there are some people beaten to death. There's but yet the thing is, there's just lots of running around and screaming and stuff like that, and there really isn't even an extensive amount of dialogue. It's really just, there are a few sequences in particular, because we really, Sofia Boutella's character is the main one, I guess, at the end of the day, even though there are some supporting players that, get a lot of screen time. There's a few numbers that I know would just make my co-host on here just like face palm. Seriously, like Boutella's character, like the camera is like following her, and so she's running throughout this huge, like, it's like an industrial warehouse type building. They were rehearsing in this one main area in the center, but then she's running through all these corridors, and she's like looking at mirrors and just screaming and doing all this craziness, and then she'll run somewhere else and she falls down, and really it does make you feel like you're tripped out on psychedelics. And that's the one thing that I will say We Are the Void also did, was it made you feel like you were on drugs. And if that's what the director was going for, which to me, in my estimation, it's very obvious that that was the case, success. As far as performances go, all of the people seem very, very genuine, and just very, very interesting, Euro opinionated, whatever. But they really don't have a lot of emotion to shoulder, with the exception of a few scenes where those accusations are really getting hefty and violence occurs. All the actors sell it well, and Boutella is interesting and brings some weight and some gravitas to everything. But yeah, long story short, it's not as heavy in the acting department, at least as far as dialogue delivery goes. It's really just about the looks of terror and like the snot coming down and all of that silliness. So I guess I'll segue into just the look and the design of the film and everything. Very slickly edited. That's the one thing that this director is definitely known for, is the fact that it is art house horror to a degree. And the layouts of all of these, and I mean, just the rehearsal alone, the way that dance number at the very beginning is shot, and then there's a few others later on after people start tripping out and they want to dance again when they're tripping, that are interesting. And all of the tracking shots, especially just following some of these characters as they're running through this entire practical maze of a complex that they're in. It's grimy, it's gross. It was a very, very cool looking spot that they chose, and it only, I mean, that's the thing with psychedelics, y'all, is that they basically mirror and enhance, whatever area you're in. And so if you're in like a comfortable, serene place, or if you're out in nature or whatever, terrific. You know, it's probably going to give you much more positive vibes. But if you're in a grimy, gross building that's dark and dimly lit and all this other stuff, it's probably going to magnify the creep out crazy factor. And so yeah, for that sheer fact, you feel the way the film is shot, you feel the claustrophobic, just building, brooding, just tension and terror of these characters as, you know, the dial is getting cranked up from the psychedelics. And so yeah, it is a very well shot movie. It is most definitely not for everyone. The music, I mean, yeah, you get stuff, you get lots of Euro dance stuff from the, like, dancey kind of, you know, trip hop type stuff almost from the 90s and, you know, the 2000s, and maybe a little modernish. I don't know. A lot of it just starts to sound the same to me after a while, since it's not a genre that I personally delve into an excessive amount. But, you know, I listen to some, you know, stuff like, you know, Justice and Daft and whatever. So, you know, the music is actually a wide selection and very good, just not as much my cup of tea, being, you know, Mr. Metal Man. But I can appreciate it, and I listen to everything. So as a whole, I will say that this movie was very much a success in what it was intending to accomplish, but what it accomplished will most definitely not be for everybody. In fact, it's really for a small minority, but you can at least appreciate what they were going for if you really try to expand your mind, which I guess is a very befitting phrase for this review. So I've been Jaime and Fuego. That's my thoughts on the latest from We Are the Void director, and it is called Climax, starring Sofia Boutella. We greatly appreciate you stopping in to watch this review, and yes, make sure to do the like, the share, the subscribe thing, hit the bell so that you get notifications about any time we have more reviews like this, which usually isn't just me, Fueguissimo, solo. You usually will have Cecil, Marcia, Susie, some of the rest of the gang along for the ride. Yes, porfa. And thank you, and gracias to all of our patrons that get the chance to tell us what to do, help program the coverage. If you have any interest in that, the link is in the description below. And yes, I guess that's going to be the end of this coverage for today. So until next time, Fright fans, remember, stay scared.